Hello and welcome back to CEO.CA's Inside the Boardroom. My name is James Fatham and today I'm joined by Mark Selby, CEO and Director of Canada Nickel. Mark, it's great to have you with us today.
Yeah, great to be here.
So let's kick things off. Quick elevator pitch. Can you give us a summary of Canada Nickel?
Sure. Canada Nickel is developing the Crawford Nickel Sulfide project. We've taken it from fifth drill hole through to feasibility study, more than halfway through the permitting process in just less than 5 years. We're on track to be able to make a construction decision on that project by 2026. Crawford is part of what we call the Timmins Nickel District. We raised $35 million backed by Agnico Eagle earlier this year. And so with that money, we're going to unlock what we think is going to be the world's largest nickel sulfide district. And then we also launched a downstream company to become a fully integrated producer, and join the ranks potentially of the seniors going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you for that overview. Let's talk a little bit about the macro side, the nickel market.
Yep.
Obviously, one of Canada's kind of designated critical minerals, so there's a big focus on local or domestic production.
Yeah.
But looking globally, where are the key drivers of demand and what are the threats to supply?
Sure. So, on the demand side, and again, I think one of the key takeaways for people listening to this interview, there's a lot of really negative press in December, January as nickel prices we were bottoming out, and the key there is the news was actually wrong. It turned out that China had been undercounting some of its nickel demand, and so one of the leading analysts basically did the grunt work and realized they've undercounted demand by about 150,000 tons, which is 5% of global nickel demand. So a pretty material step change. We're seeing it, already in demand. Since the beginning of the decade, demand's grown up more than 10% a year. Most analyst forecasts don't come anywhere close to that. So they've been underestimating demand. I saw that when I was at Inco back in the early 2000s. People underestimated just how big and how quickly China was going to grow, and so the same thing is happening here with continued strength in stainless and the EV market. On the supply side, with that 10% demand growth, we would need 3 million tons more nickel by the end of this decade. So when people say, oh, there's 1.5 million or 2 million tons coming from Indonesia, and they'll stretch to get another 2 million tons out, we need all of that nickel. And in terms of a threat for us locally, the reality is, a huge amount of that nickel from Indonesia comes with a massive carbon footprint. You're talking 50, 80, 90 tons of CO2 per ton of nickel that gets produced. Environmentally, again, encourage people to, look online. And there's been some good stories, some good video footage of the kind of environmental damage that's happening there. So, I think for us, with the focus on getting China out of the supply chain, because China owns most of those operations in Indonesia, the kind of tariff walls that have been going up on Chinese products, to be able to have a whole, series of nickel projects, which is what we think we've got with the Timmins Nickel District, sort of inside the wall, is going to be very, very, very valuable going forward. And whatever amount of nickel we can generate, we think is going to be sopped up. The conversations we're having, Samsung SDI is one of our partners. They're one of the world's largest battery makers. All of the Chinese or the Korean groups that we're talking to, their growth forecasts, they're looking for 5 and 10 times more nickel than they're currently using today. So anything we can get out of the ground will be, in very hot demand.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about the Timmins kind of nickel district.
Yeah.
Walk us through maybe the different projects you have there, and also the work that's ongoing. I know you've just wrapped up some metallurgy work, drilling at the Deloro project, resource estimate pending there. How does this kind of whole vision for a district fit together?
Yeah, so one of the great things, just in terms of the geology. So there are certain types of mineral deposits where the geophysical footprint gives you kind of 60, 70, 80% of the answer. And fortunately for these ultramafic deposits, this is the case. So we've been able to use the provincially free geophysics that are available and use that. And we did 30 plus deals. We have over 20 targets in the Timmins region. 10 of them are bigger, the footprint, than Crawford. And so, we really think, there's the potential, for a very large district. The great thing is, this is not in a remote area. We're not talking Ring of Fire or Nunavut. This is all in and around the city of Timmins, where you've got rail lines, highways, natural gas pipelines. You've got 60,000 people plus in multiple communities who are very supportive of mining. You've got First Nations, who, because there's so much mining activity in the region, understand the impact benefit trade-off in terms of what mining, can deliver to the communities. And so, the ability to have potentially, these many deposits, these many mines, in and around such a well-endowed area and such a area with such a good understanding of mining is, I think, a tremendous opportunity. So, the key to unlocking that nickel district this year and 2024 is going to be, a very big part of that. Agnico Eagle helped backstop what was a $35 million exploration financing. And so with that, we've got 7 drill rigs turning right now. We'll be drilling more than 90,000 meters of drilling. As you said, we've already started to have some news releases coming out, and again, you're going to see a whole series of news flow there. So our Deloro project, which is just 9 kilometers south of Timmins, we completed the drilling there. That's now going into the resource estimation stage. We expect to have the first resource for that in July. Mm-hmm. And what we committed to early in the year is, we'll deliver 7 additional resources by this time next year, and we're looking to make another 6 discoveries, within that land package. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find any company of any size that does, has that kind of resource growth potential. And then the other piece was around what we're doing with Crawford. Our hope is these deposits are geologically and mineralogically similar enough that we can take all the engineering that we've done into Crawford and basically cut and paste it around these other deposits. So we did some work about a year ago on our Reed property, which has got twice the footprint of Crawford, and the drilling there is going well, and the met work went well. We just announced we did that with one of our Man properties, where we took some samples from there, just put it through the existing Crawford flow sheet, and got the kind of recoveries and product grade that we're looking for. So, again, that kind of opportunity is pretty rare.
Yeah, certainly a very interesting opportunity, not only from an infrastructure standpoint, but also a financing standpoint. I understand there's a lot of tax credits available that are going to contribute to funding the project. You've obviously had buy-in from 3 kind of major external backers with Samsung SDI, Agnico Eagle, and Anglo American. Walk us through the path to financing, and as I understand it, you're raising debt and equity. What does that split look like?
So this is the second largest nickel reserve. When it's fully ramped up, it would be the Western world's largest nickel sulfide operation, third largest in the world overall, and it's a big open pit operation. So our capex for the feasibility study was just under $2 billion. And again, one of the key takeaways for investors from this interview is again, we're in a once in a generation opportunity where the government is going to provide you very significant financing support and effectively a lot of free capital. And so in terms of the financing package, we're looking at roughly 60-40. We'll be targeting putting together $1 billion of equity, which sounds like a lot, but when you step back and say, okay, there are the critical minerals refundable tax credits, that gives us 30 cents of free cash on every dollar that we spend. Because the other big opportunity with the Timmins Nickel District, all of these properties are hosted in rocks that capture CO2. We developed a process that allows us to store 1.5 million tons of CO2 per year, which would make us one of the largest carbon storage facilities. Because of that, our process plan, we believe, will qualify for another tax credit that gives us 50 cents on every dollar that we spend. So between just those 2 refundable tax credits for the first phase of the project, that's over $600 million US of free capital that can come into the company. Samsung SDI is part of the deal with them. They have the opportunity to buy 10% of the project for $100 million US. Again, that's a multiple, of where we're trading today. And we're looking to sell, ideally we'd sell 20% of the project to one of the big Japanese trading houses who are back in the big mining project. And so you just put those 3 chunks of capital together, and that's, well over $1 billion. You've got other government funding sources, whether it's from the U.S. government, from the European government. So the equity side, very well, a very clear path in terms of how we're able to put that together. We're working with Scotia and Deutsche Bank, and the goal is to have that in place by year end. On the debt side, we're working with Cutfield Freeman, who are one of the leading project debt advisory groups. And again, the same push from the governments in terms of providing equity support, is also there on that debt side. So, we in terms of the debt package, the Canadian agencies, whether it's Export Development Canada, Infrastructure Bank, we're going down that path. And with a combination of the Export-Import Bank from the U.S., the Japanese or Korean export banks, depending on who our partners are. Again, it's there's a very credible, doable path to get that full debt package together as well and again, targeting year end.
Okay, and in terms of the permitting process, obviously another milestone. I understand they're looking for permits mid-2025.
Yep.
Are there any other pieces of that puzzle still to come together, or is the path there pretty clear as well?
Yeah, the path there pretty clear. Our team permitted the Dumont project back 10 years ago, which is one of the only large greenfield base metal projects that's been permitted in Canada. And so we're more than halfway through the process. We expect to complete the second stage of the federal process, by the end of the summer. That would complete stage 2 of the process, and that puts the government on a 365-day clock to come back with a yes/no answer. We're expecting, they've said they want to go faster, so we expect to might get that sooner. So that's that ties into that mid-2025 timeline. There's about a half a dozen separate permits that we need to go through the provincial process. But again, George Peary, I was up in Timmins yesterday, and the government has done a great job in really focusing on streamlining the processes there, and so we're not expecting any issues in terms of the kind of permits we need. Again, to be able to hit that mid-2025 deadline.
Okay. I guess looking to production 2027 as the goal, beyond permitting and financing, what other milestones are there that people can look out for as a sense that you're still on track for that timeline?
Yeah, so the key, there's the financing piece, right? So we're targeting year end, the permitting, we just talked about those milestones. And then the other key piece, again, if you're actually going to build a project and we've got the team to do it, our project delivery team's led by a guy named Des Tranquilla. He led the engineering for the Detour Gold project, which, in terms of project getting built, that ended up being built, on time, on budget. So having someone of Des's caliber, come over, and again, he's brought, a bunch of his team that he's worked with in the past come over. And so we kicked off what's called front-end engineering design. So that takes what is 10% engineering and a feasibility study and takes it up to 30% engineering. We're expected to complete that by August. That gives you enough engineering to go order all the long lead items that you may need to order. And then, that'll feed in eventually into, the next phase of detail engineering. So again, when you want to put the shovel in the ground, you know where you have to put it.
And obviously Timmins, historical mining district, great infrastructure, well-known mining jurisdiction. Why has nobody pursued a project at this scale for nickel before in that region?
So the thing with the Timmins area, so a lot of these targets are sitting undercover. So there was a giant glacial lake that existed for several thousand years. So there's basically anywhere from 5 to 50 meters worth of dirt sitting on top of these deposits. So, most of them you can't see visibly. The key piece has been for nickel. People have tended to focus historically on higher grade type of nickel deposits. But the problem with that is they're just really not large enough. And the economics, the grades look sexy, but when you look at the underlying economics and what really matters is cash flow, you really struggle to put something together that makes sense. The two biggest nickel sulfide discoveries of the last 20 years were one called Nova Bollinger and another one called Eagle. They were only 250,000 tons of nickel each. Nickel is over a 3 million ton market going to a 6 million ton market. So, where we need, the U.S. alone in the EV market in 5 to 10 years will be consuming, that entire resource in just 1 year. That's the kind of scale. And so these big low grade ultramafics, yes, they are low grade, but they're open pitable in a place like Timmins where you have all the infrastructure, access to low cost power, access to a workforce that can drive home every night. When you have 40 years worth of reserve, those are the kind of things, we believe can really drive value. And again, our team came from the team that had Dumont originally, and advanced that through to permitting and construction ready stage. It's now owned by, a private equity group. But in terms of value creation in the nickel space, we think these deposits are what going to be. And when you look and say, okay, if we need hundreds of thousands of tons of additional nickel, we don't want dirty, high carbon nickel, and that's Chinese controlled from Indonesia. We want clean, green, IRA compliant nickel. We think these deposits in Timmins in this district is ideally positioned to become, the go-to source of nickel for North America, not just North America, but also Western Europe.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the team on board. I know you mentioned a couple of the key members already. Obviously, a project of this complexity and these timelines, people are looking for a management team who's done it before. Can you tell us a bit about your background and maybe some other key people on the team?
Yeah, so several of us worked at Inco back, and we're part of the Inco senior management group. We tried to merge with Falconbridge back in the mid-2000s. That unfortunately did not happen. So, you've got very, very strong nickel experience in terms of whether it's financial. One of our team members was involved in financing, putting the initial financing package together for Cobre Panama, 20 years ago. It's talked about Des's experience. Our permitting team, again, the very few projects have been permitted of this scale, base metal projects in Canada. And so, we've got a team that has done many of these things before, and we're ready to take it forward to the next level.
Fantastic. And just to wrap up, for retail investors, CEO.CA users, people who might be taking an interest in Canada Nickel, what would you say the unique value proposition is? What sets you apart from your peers, and why is now a time to be paying attention?
Yeah, so, number one, the fact that you've got one of the world's largest mining companies, Anglo, Canada's largest company, Agnico, one of the world's largest battery makers, have all invested in this company, right? So, if these companies see something with the project and the team they have, they can go invest anywhere else. And we've got kind of three votes of approval. The nickel market, again, somebody like Samsung is based in Asia. If they thought they could get all the nickel they needed from Indonesia, they wouldn't bother making an investment in us. One of the other big ultramafics has also got another Asian investor in place. And so, and the nickel market, again, there was all that negative news in December, January. We had talked, I had said after Chinese New Year, you're going to see the market move, and nickel prices are up 30% off the bottom. It's in Indonesia's interest. The nickel and stainless steel is so important to their economy that it's in their interest to try and maximize the value of those things. So if you think they're going to blow up the nickel market, that's ridiculous, because that's their key income stream, one of their key income streams for the company. And so, the nickel market's going to continue to come back as the year progresses. And I think, setting up for the kind of squeeze, in lithium 2019, everybody said lithium's dead, not going anywhere. 18 months later, the price was up 10x. We're not going to see that kind of a price move in nickel. That's not good for the metal. But you are going to see, we believe, significantly higher nickel prices by the middle part of this decade. With the kind of announcement with Joe Biden last week, putting tariffs on a whole pile of EVs, critical minerals, and so forth, that's not going to go away anytime soon. And so being inside the wall, being able to take advantage of free government money, governments that are going to these extraordinary measures to try and get China out of the supply chain, to be not only the potential for multiple mines, and having the downstream operations to convert them behind the wall, inside the wall in North America, we think is a tremendous value proposition that no one else is offering in the market today.
Mark, really looking forward to hearing more from Canada Nickel over the coming months and years. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.